Hey,
Welcome, welcome. So tonight we're doing another trans creator spotlight, and today we have Midnya. Yay! All right, Midnya, go ahead. Let's get started with just simple introductions. Name, screen name, and what pronouns do you use?
uh, okay, so name, I go by Cassandra or Cass or Cassie, pretty much. It's just like a mix of the three, really. Uh, Screen name, Minya, of course. It's just kind of stuck for quite a few years at this point. What was the other one?
Pronouns?
Pronouns, she, her.
Awesome. And Midnya, what do you do on the internet?
Well, on the internet, I stream for pretty much a not exactly a living, I would say, more just at this point I've been doing it for fun. Uh Maybe at one point I would like to of course make a job out of it, but for now it's just a hobby.
Sweet. And so I know you from streaming. I met you because I was randomly scrolling through the trans tag and I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, cow." And then you were very leftist and I was, "Hey, leftist cow." And so I stuck around. Um, so, yeah. So part of your identity that I've always, like, tied to you is that you are adamantly leftist.
Yeah, I am very open about that because it's just sometimes something I talk about because it's just I'm I'm not exactly saying it's part of my identity or anything like that. It's more just this is just me. When I stream, it's all me. I'm not trying to push myself to be someone else. It's just me.
Mhm. Who so what got you started, in streaming particularly?
Uh I guess it would probably be a another streamer that I kind of got interested in, uh, and it kind of pushed me towards it in a way. They are also, I suppose, a cow VTuber of sorts.
Mhm.
So, uh, so I guess in a way, because of that, it sort of pushed me in that direction. Uh, Not necessarily because oh, I wanted to do this. It's more just I just felt like doing it as a hobby
Fair
because it
enough.
seemed like it'd be fun.
Yeah. Um, what about it seemed fun to you?
Probably just more on the fact of just hanging out and see if anybody came by and just, well, talk to me. It's it's not exactly that complicated.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Um, and how would you describe or let me ask, how long have you been streaming?
At this point, probably about a year.
Wow.
Started back in I think last February.
Oh, wow, yeah, that would be just over a year, dang.
Yeah, I, I'm pretty sure that was the first time I streamed on a regular. So, started out pretty small, uh, short hours, then it kind of pushed into the 4-hour range to 5 days a week, but I kind of pushed that back a little bit because I wanted to make sure that I do not push myself too hard.
Mhm. So you said at the beginning that you really want it or, like, you would be okay if this, like, became a job for you, right?
Yeah, or at least maybe even just like a side venture. That way it kind of, I guess, puts more money in my direction. But right now I don't currently have a job, so I'm kind of just cruising at the moment.
Mhm. Um, what kind of things do you think are kind of what do you think is getting in the way of you turning this into a job?
Uh, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've kind of been pushing towards letting this grow naturally because, well, I understand that networking is probably very important. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's for everyone, I should say, because networking on its own, especially if you are already coming from like a bigger platform or like not necessarily a platform, just like you have, um, yeah, I should say you have like more, let's say, like if your name is already known, your fan base or whatever, like your following's going to follow you somewhere. So once you're starting out like on your own, well, what can you do really, you know?
Yeah. It can definitely feel like that where, like, the people who got started earlier have this advantage that feels like like they have it, so that it's like, "W well, I don't, so what do I do?"
Like, yeah, I understand. That's why I'm saying that, like, I completely understand how networking works, and that's how you like build working partnerships and whatnot. It The problem there is that it's hard for me to do that because I have issues of just interacting in a way. That's kind of why I tend to just let it grow naturally and let people just find me.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And what do you think you provide that isn't provided anywhere else?
Uh, I guess for me, I would just say I am completely genuine. I'm not trying to like limit my speech or anything like that. Like, sure, I'm aware of like rules and whatnot, but I'm not like going to like really let that stop me from just speaking my mind.
Mhm. Yeah. So you think that you are a genuine human slash cow on the internet.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, and yeah, there is a lot of this. Would you agree with the statement that there is a lot of fakeness around being on the internet?
There there's definitely a performance aspect to a lot of internet culture and creators, but that isn't necessarily a completely bad thing because some people do want to hide some of their aspects of their life because, well, privacy is very important.
Mhm. Yeah, and like, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of fakeness or performativeness. Um,
Yeah.
so you think you provide but you think in contrast you provide a very genuine, authentic kind of person, right?
Yeah, I definitely would say I'm more on that lane because I just prefer being able to go out of my way just being myself. Like, yes, there are aspects that I do in fact hide for privacy reasons. However, a majority of that is kind of just simple information that really shouldn't be shared, but uh other than that, it's pretty much just me the whole time.
Mhm. Um, and that's kind of and that is very important, that we have more of those, um, people who are not gonna give in to, like, what's popular or what the companies demand or what the consumer conglomerate prefers. whatever that means.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, there is definitely demographics out there that, like, prefer, like that obviously have their preferences. However, there is also a lot of people that just want to find something that they can get into because there's clearly I don't wanna really say market, more just like there are people out there that are just themselves and allow a space where people can just hang out and just talk about whatever, really.
Mhm. Um, so a question, so right now you are a PNG tuber, right?
Yes. Yes, I would say I'm a PNG tuber, like, I've made all my own, assets, and it's pretty much just been that way ever since. Because I prefer having a personal touch, however, I'm not against, like, making a commission or whatever if I could.
Mhm. Yeah, so all the art that you do of your PNG tubers are handmade by you.
Yes, they're all handmade by me, um, uh, pretty much all the outfits are just, yeah, they're all pretty much just layered on top of the original, look.
Very cool. I think it's really cool that you do all of your own art. I wish I could do more of my own art. I do all of my own emotes, but, for example, what I'm using here for the interview got done by my friend Oz, and the one that I use for my gaming got done by my friend Zoe. Um, and so I think that's super cool. It definitely adds to that feeling of, yeah, it's just you. It's just you back there.
Pretty much. I just it's really just what I prefer doing. I prefer having a personal touch and because it just even I don't necessarily think it's, like, the best looking because I worked really hard on it with what I could do, but I would never say it's probably, like, my best work or whatever. It's what matters to me, though, is that I'm showing what is me.
Mhm, yeah, and that's super cool. Like, even if it's not the best art, which is also kind of a weird thing to measure art,
Oh,
uh
yeah, it's definitely I know that for sure, knowing the art field in a general sense, 'cause, oh my god, it's what looks good to someone is always going to be subjective because you can literally have then again, I don't, like, necessarily wanna mention those things,
mhm.
uh, blockchain related stuff.
Mhm. Yeah. I was gonna actually ask, do you ever plan on becoming a VTuber, like a full-blown 3D model VTuber?
Mm, I think it depends. It definitely depends on, like, if I would be able to do that on my own, like, find out how to, like, model and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm not sure I would be capable of doing it. But, um, maybe eventually at some point, if I were to, like, perhaps gain access to these tools and learn how to do it, or if I ended up getting the cash to commission.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily on the table right now, but, in the long distance, you're saying that, like, maybe.
Yeah, maybe if I end up getting the chance, I would, but currently, no, but I'm also not that worried about it because I just like what I have currently.
Mhm. What are your opinions on, um, like, reaction channels? Not necessarily reactionary, but, like, channels that react to news or that react to videos that are popular, etcetera?
Uh, I think that really depends. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing in and of itself because people do have their own takes on um what a certain kind of content is or whatever. Like even if it's just like a simple silly video or even if it's just like a an event that's happened.
Mhm. I
Um like there is definitely like probably like I don't want to say any names necessarily. Um there is definitely a there's definitely an issue of people just there is definitely an issue of some people dogpiling on certain people just because they happen to exist or they express um very uncontroversial views. I don't know. At least when it comes to me, I have been trying to pull myself away from a lot of content like that because it tend it tended to make my mental health not necessarily that great. So I wanted to pull myself back from that and try to focus on content that better fits what I believe in. Like I'm not necessarily saying like this just means oh I'm in an echo chamber or anything like that. No, not far from that. I still listen to like other things. That doesn't necessarily mean I agree with it or that I just feel like I am it, I guess the thing is that I've heard a lot of the same things before, especially from a, let's say, conservative angle, because yeah, a lot of it ends up blending together.
Mhm.
So it just ends up being, well, there's no real point in me exactly listening at that point because it's just the same arguments all the time. Woo.
Yeah. Conservatives really just find one argument and then say, "Gotcha," the whole time, even though it doesn't necessarily make sense all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason why I was asking that, which well, first, I'm gonna agree with you that, like, I think people shouldn't be digesting that kind of content constantly. Um
It's the same thing with like I should I should say like debate bro sort of channels. Like I'm not necessarily saying all of them are like terrible people. I would never say that. It's just there is definitely some very prominent people within that space that are kind of just let's just say um just pulling stuff out of their ass.
Mhm. Yeah.
So they kind of just spout it all out at once and they're not really thinking about it, especially if it's like something that they think they don't agree with at first. Like I don't want to like name a specific situation or anything like that, but I definitely seen that like with certain points that it had to do with minorities, especially among black people,
Mhm.
and I was not exactly very uh happy about that because it just clearly seemed like some people within that space did not actually understand what happened and like what certain concepts were happening. Like, I want to say black separatism and stuff like that, trying to separate themselves from their oppressors and whatnot. Uh, there is definitely an issue with all of that going down where many debate bro sort of people just really pushed down and thought it was a black version of white supremacy, which is not even remotely the truth.
Yeah, no. Uh, so, yeah, there is a lot of that. Like, they just need to say something because they always need to say something, um,
Yeah, which is
which can be
part of my
frustrating.
problem with that because, like, um, that's, like, one of my main problems with, like, reactionary or, like, even debate bro sort of stuff is that I it's very in the moment of just they need to, like, react to this and whatnot instead of just thinking about it and understanding what these concepts are.
Mhm. I
And
agree with
especially in that like, in that space with the Black separatism movement or whatever, w one of the people that was talking about it wasn't even a Black separatist at all. So, the fact that some of these debate bro people just, like, pushed back towards her, despite her literally just describing the view without even saying that she is part of the movement, just shows that they thought that she was a Black separatist when she wasn't.
Mhm.
It's it kinda just tells me that they were not paying attention and they just kinda dogpiled on her just because, "Oh, I don't know what this concept is, so I'm just gonna push it back at her because I think it's the Black version of white supremacy."
Mhm. Yeah.
I
So, to kind of steer us back into why I asked the question in the first place,
Yeah,
the reason why I ask is because sometimes when I'm in your chat or you're in my chat, you have some very insightful things to say, that is not necessarily, like, fit for, what do I s how do I say this? Like, it feels too thought out to be just kind of, randomly thrown in during a hangout, um,
yeah,
and that's not a bad thing because I think it would be interesting if you did reviews on games from a leftist perspective or did reviews on things you've watched from a leftist perspective.
yeah.
Um, how does that sound?
Well, when it comes to doing that, I'm probably not necessarily against it because I already tend to do that when I'm just kinda playing in the moment or, like, even after, like, I spend, like, a few minutes just talking about what I just played and, like, what I think about it. Yeah, that's pretty much what I tend to do because I don't necessarily rank things on a number scale because I don't think that necessarily works for me. It doesn't really work because ranking things in that way just doesn't feel right to me, and it feels like I'm
It's all
like
arbitrary.
yeah, it feels like I'm putting them, like, in a label or, like, a category or whatnot, and I don't like that. Just I want to experience whatever media property it is for what it is, and then I can make my analysis or, like, my thoughts around it just for what it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, you play a game, you finish it, and then you talk about it for like 5 minutes, and then that I think it'd be cool if those little clips were like I could watch them. It'd be cool if I could watch them. Is kind
Yeah.
of where I was going because sometimes when you play a game, I'm like, I wonder what Minya's like feelings behind it is. Um, and I don't
Well,
want to sit through the
especially
whole stream sometimes, especially if like I can't.
yeah, I understand. I could definitely think about doing that, probably, like, make some highlights or something like that with whatever, like especially with, like, a game like Disco Elysium or whatever, like, that the game is very heavily political, but, it's also comedically focused. Like, it toes the line between serious and comedic pretty well, especially with the fact that, like, it really pushes on you and just criticize criticize criticizes you for many of your views unless you're already, like, within, like, the space. It very much criticizes, like, many parts of the spectrum. Conservatives, liberals, even leftists to a point.
Mhm,
Uh, but the game itself is made by very much, communists, so they however, do I'm not saying that they, like, completely push out their own ideology. They even, um, criticize their own. The whole point of the game is pretty much that they want to make a new leftist movement that has learned from the mistakes of the past,
yeah,
not one that is currently embroiled in all of the discourse or whatever around the current movement.
yeah. See, and that's awesome. Like, thank you. That's a quick summary wrap up of what you thought of the game and, what the game was about, and yeah, something like
And
that.
yeah, that game is also just that's not even necessarily a summary of the game. It's more of just it's a very much a summary of like the philosophy behind it.
Yeah, which I
Uh,
appreciate a lot more, to be honest. Like,
the game itself is from you play as you play as a um alcoholic drug abuser. Uh
okay.
yes, you play as an alcoholic drug abuser who is a cop. But at the start of the game, because of all your substance abuse, you somehow become an amnesiac. So you have no real like you have no real insight of who you are, who you like, what your job is, or anything like that. You're kind of just going around playing as the amnesiac cop, and then you pretty much just make your own version of that character, Harry Dubois. That's the main character's name.
Mhm.
And of course, when I went through it, I was very much going in the communist direction, but there was a very obvious flaw in doing that.
Mhm.
Because I'm going around spouting all of this rhetoric and whatnot, no one's really listening because I just sound like a madman.
Interesting.
Like the point that it's making is that no one person can change the world on their own.
That's true.
It re- it requires a team of people, a community of people even to
Mhm.
rise up and do it together.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Um, what what kinds of games are you attracted to?
Um I guess that really depends because I am very much attracted to many different uh kinds of games. However, I'm not necessarily trying to push myself into any specific genre because I like having a variety available to me. Uh but ones that I definitely gravitate towards is uh probably more action focused ones and maybe even RPG focused ones. Uh, like Disco Elysium, I'm not necessarily going to like go in on another full tangent on it, but it is a RPG centric detective game. Well, at least at first glance, anyway.
Mhm.
it's much more than that, but it's also inspired by another game called Planescape Torment, which did
Oh,
something very similar.
what a cool game that one is.
Yeah, that game is the main inspiration for Disco Elysium. That's why it feels very much like it in many ways. But, yeah, I lean very much towards the action-focused games 'cause, you know, because of course, I like being able to be free and just going out of my way with the combat and everything. But there's also other games within that space that are very philosophical, especially a game like, well, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, surprisingly enough.
Which is that, or what's the company that makes it?
Platinum Games.
Yeah, Platinum Games, they do, like, Bayonetta and stuff?
Yeah, they do their hack and slashes and whatnot, uh, but Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance in itself is very high action and very high energy, especially with its music and whatnot. But the music is far deeper than that because, especially when you're fighting the bosses, well, the songs themselves are within their own heads and discusses their own philosophy about the world.
Mm.
One in particular, Senator Armstrong, which I'm putting it out right here. He's an awful dude. He's pretty much like the mega Chad version of Trump. Let's just
Oh,
say that.
Wonka-esque. Uh-huh.
Like he's just big buff dude, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
He's what conservatives would consider Trump looks like.
Oh my god. Uh-huh.
Uh like the point that his character is trying to make is that he has he is very similar to the main character himself. Like they both have very similar philosophies in a very unexpected way. Like the main character, Raiden, he at the first start of the game, he clearly wants to protect people with his own power. However, as the game goes on, he starts becoming a lot more intentionally murderous.
Oh, okay.
Like, intentionally, like, he wants to rip people apart with his blade. There's, like,
Okay.
this there's, like, this side of him that he calls Jack the Ripper.
Ah.
So, in a way, that inner part of him is very similar to Senator Armstrong in the fact that they have similar levels of wanting the strong to overcome the weak or something like that because, well, that's Senator Armstrong's philosophy. He's obviously incorrect because, well, that's a very toxic ideology.
Mhm.
Like in the end, Raiden does come up on top, but in the end, he also goes off on his own to um create justice for the world in his own way. He leaves his organization and just goes rogue. Not necessarily in a way that like he's going to like hurt people. He's not gonna hurt, like, innocents or anything like that, more just in a way that he has a sense of justice that he wants to fulfill on his own.
Mhm. So those kinds of stories, are, stuff that there's no real tying genre, but more like, are they trying to deliver a bigger message? The kind of games you seem to be attracted to, is that correct?
I'm definitely very attracted to those, kinds of games, I suppose. like, it's not necessarily always has to be that. There are always gonna be games out there that I just kinda chill out with and just mess around, like, hell, even a game like Payday 2,
Mhm.
where it's literally just you're going around killing cops and just robbing everyone blind.
Yeah.
Then again, the like, the main story behind why they went on a, like, bank robbing spree in the first place is that they were not treated well under the, US government as it is. So, they snapped, and they just went around and going like, "We need our payday, so let's steal shit."
You know, if they're not gonna give us the money, we'll just go get it. We'll just go pick it up.
Like, yeah, sure, I wouldn't necessarily say they're, like, leftist or anything because they definitely lean towards, like, "Oh, we want as much money as possible,"
Which is not.
but there's the yeah, but, like, it's definitely not. However, on its own, it's definitely showing that they did want to, like, actually get the money that they deserved.
Mhm.
That way, they could actually live.
Mhm.
So there's definitely that part there that I am interested in because it clearly shows that these like, the despite the game pretty much saying that these are just lovable villains, I don't think that's necessarily true because how does crime start? People are desperate
Mhm.
and they want to be able to live. So, crime in itself is not a bad thing.
It's a
It's
symptom.
yes, it's a symptom of a failing system.
Um, so we're gonna go to a be right back screen, and we will return with this. Everyone make sure you get some water and stretch. We've been going for about 40 minutes, but yeah, we'll be right back, okay?
Alright, see ya.
And we're back. Hello. Sorry about that. I had to take care
Hey,
I had to take care of something really fast. Um, so Minya, you are trans,
yeah.
leftist, and a furry existing on the internet. What has that combination kind of been like for you?
Uh, I guess in a way, it would probably say it ties in together because a lot of that stuff just it kind of tends to fit because minorities, especially other ethnicities, other sexualities, even identities, just general stuff like that. Minorities in general are just so othered and pushed down upon that it's kind of hard not to go anywhere but left,
Mhm.
'cause because those because that side of the aisle, even though technically I just don't wanna go, like, with the whole both sides shit because, well, we shouldn't be having these sides in the first place.
True.
Um, like, there's no other reason but to go left because I want the world to be better for everyone, not because I'm going like, I don't even necessarily hate people on the right-leaning side. I just feel like that they're in a situation of needing to be taught in order to realize that they deserve better just like everybody else does.
Mhm. I'm with you there. I don't hate people on the right. I would just kind of feel bad for them 'cause
Like, there's definitely, like, people that I do not like over there and because, well, Matt Walsh, I'm not even gonna mention every single one, but, like, the real recent one is definitely Matt Walsh, but in general, I it's it's not even necessarily that I, like, hate them, it's just because they're in a place where pushing that kind of rhetoric is just profitable. They don't actually care about it, they just want the money because it brings views.
Mm, yeah, and it's makes me feel bad for the people who are just getting their money taken to a belief that is not even real, not even being held by anybody real.
It's just a fabrication that is made in order to rile people up and take their money because they're gullible, unfortunately.
Yeah. Um, what about, um, you and like, as an individual, do you find yourself how do you find yourself in this landscape of the internet?
Uh, I guess for me, well, how would you describe that really? Like, how do you think I should answer that?
Um, it's it's very difficult to put it into words, but, like, for me being trans, leftist, furry, and
Oh, okay.
minority,
You mean just identity and how I find myself here.
um, well, kind of, but, like, taking that and, like, how does that affect your day to day? How does that affect, what you see online or how you see, um, what you do online?
Um, well, for me, when it comes to being online, I usually tend to stay in my friend group or at least like talk to people sometimes on Twitter or whatever, but I'm not like I just know for sure going on a tangent on Twitter, like arguing with people is just a no go. You can't. So, so like how I end up like talking to people is just I just be myself, and if any like bigot or whatever just comes by, I just brush them off and like go on with my life because I just don't want to deal with that. There's no point in me dealing with that.
Mhm. Yeah, so this feeling of, like, engaging in discourse feels, well, exhausting as well as pointless, as
Yes.
and just kind of living as yourself, and if people show up, you'll deal with them as on a case-to-case basis.
Yes, I tend to definitely go down that route because I would just rather not be in the discourse all the time because that just makes it mentally exhausting, and I'd rather not make myself more tired than I usually am.
Mhm.
But
You find that
but
streaming helps?
yes, I definitely find that streaming helps because it helps me just like it helps me bring out my thoughts and whatnot, just put them into words, stuff like that. Um, like maybe I am for a live format because it just helps me put out my thoughts immediately.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Um, is there something else that you would like to talk about before I try to wrap things up here?
Um, I guess for me, when it comes to being furry, it's not necessarily anything, it's not necessarily anything like super out there. It's when it comes to being furry, I'm pre this cow version of me is pretty much it's an ideal. It's an ideal of what I'd want to be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it would come to pass. It's kind of just like wish fulfillment and, wanting to become more and just wanting to be me.
Mhm. Reject humanity, become cow.
Basically. Like, if I had the ability, if they had, like, I don't know, a transformation kind of freaking machine, I would use it, and I would just become my ideal self. Just no ifs or ands or buts. I don't care. I am doing that if I ever get the chance.
Mhm. Nice, yeah. I love your persona. Your persona is very cute.
But, yeah, thank you. I know there's, like, this, I guess there's this I don't know how to describe it, but there's this discourse around, like, furries in general, like, just because, "Oh, they're trying to be animals or, like, humanoid animals or whatever." It does that really matter? Do you not have a, like, superhero persona or something? It's
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, people are so silly. They get caught up in the weirdest things. It's like,
Like,
identity is so weird in general, and I think it's ridiculous to tell people how they can find themselves.
identity in general is always up to the individual because in the end, no one should be pushing you back, especially especially a society's binary look at gender or even just personhood.
Mhm.
It's just not good. It's not good for anyone to go out of their way to police you just for being who you are. Like, unless you're a freaking Nazi, I'm not gonna freaking care, really.
Mhm. Yeah, and we just gotta be able to be ourselves.
But yeah, when it comes to like who I am, like in terms of like left ideology, I lean towards the anarcho communist angle, which leans on it leans on the anarchist side of things where I believe in communist ideals, however, it's in a way that's much more stateless. much more community oriented.
Mhm. Less need less, like, yeah, need for structured, hierarchies.
Well, hierarchies aren't necessarily the biggest problem because there definitely should be some level of hierarchy in terms of like helping lead people to do what they need to do, or at least give them direction.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just like we don't need a ton of it. We don't
We
need
don't
endless
need
hierarchies.
Yeah, we don't need anything like that. We don't need like our CEOs, we don't need our CFOs or anything like that. We just need like general simple leadership structure. That's why worker co-ops exist where like it's a worker run um business where where it's workplace democracy where everybody has a choice in what happens, which is very important because, well, everyone should be able to have their input.
Mm,
But yeah, that's pretty much what I mean is that I see hierarchy as more as something like the smaller version of a hierarchy with like small versions of leadership or whatever. Those aren't a problem because they lead to better circumstances for your average worker. But obviously anything higher than that, like just general, oh, it's a CEO who doesn't actually do anything. They just kind of sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I technically own this firm, but I don't actually do anything with it."
it's all ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, to be honest.
That's why simple leadership just works better because, well, everyone tends to have a better say of what they want and what they need and just pretty much anything like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my goal is that I want people to have their needs met. I want people to be able to make their choices the way they want without having to feel like they're being pushed down for just being themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that also ties back into identity that choices are very much identity, driven.
Mhm. They are. Whatever I, as an individual, need, I should have my needs met.
Yeah, like, everyone should have their needs met. You should have your food, you should have your water, you should have your medical your medical needs met, just ger oh, yeah, also sheltering needs, like, just literally everything you need in order to live. As long as you have that, you can literally go out of your way and just kinda be yourself with whatever life you have.
Mhm. So I think with that, I want to wrap things up here. I've been trying to tighten up my interviews in general.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we thank you so much for coming on and talking with me.
Alright, well, I appreciate I appreciate, being here. It was nice talking to you. I know it's been a little while since I've really done anything probably around you or anything. It's it's just kinda because I've been trying to calm down a little bit, I should say. Just letting letting thing letting things cool down, let myself
Yeah.
yeah,
Take
I've
care of
just been
yourself,
trying
of
to
course.
yeah, I've been trying to calm down, let myself be at ease, because 'cause I've definitely had issues of schedule as of late, like, not necessarily in, like, me being late or whatever, it's just I need to push myself back, that way I could, of course, be myself and just yeah, I would never, like, be very silent for any particular reason.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't take anything personally. I just imagine you're taking care of yourself, and that's okay. Um, yeah, don't worry
yeah,
about it. I really appreciate you again coming on, and thank you for, um, helping me during the whole hate raid stuff. That's why you became one of my mods, and then, um, I hope to
yeah,
see you around,
yeah,
and
I'll definitely try to do that because I'm sorry if I never, like, showed up or anything.
no, it's
It's
okay. I haven't gotten hit by hate raid in a while, so
I haven't gotten hit by a hate rate at all, surprisingly.
Um, so right before we end, I just want to give you a chance to shout yourself out. All your links, anywhere people want to find you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can drop those. Give me a second. Uh, alright. So, usually you can find me over at, um
um, I don't know if it'll.
I'm putting it in the chat,
Oh,
but,
guys, send it to me because I don't remember if I have a moderator, auto mod, on or not.
alright.
You can just send it
Uh,
in DMs.
yeah. Um, they can usually find me here at, on Twitch, on my Twitch channel. Um, I also have a, Twitter. I don't necessarily, like, post too much on there. It's mostly just, like, stream updates and whatnot, or, like, anything like that. It's pretty much my main, source of, let's say yeah, it's pretty much my main source of just, well, retweeting and whatnot, just sometimes even sharing my thoughts. It's not necessarily, like, too social on there, but, I I also have my Discord in there if anyone well, on my Twitter, there's also my Discord there. There's a link to that there, but that's also just completely up to anybody. I am open to people being there if they wanna hang out, cause pretty much in the last year or so, I've been turning that Discord into pretty much my Twitch, community Discord, but otherwise, it's still a pretty much a server where pretty much anyone can hang out, especially if you're trans or anything like that.
Very
Uh,
cool. And I know that you stream on Twitch every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Correct?
uh, that's changed a little bit. Currently, I might have to change that on my Twitter. That way, it can be a bit more updated. I pushed that back a bit to be every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. PST, but sometimes I will have a stream somewhere in between those days. It really all depends, but you'll usually become updated if you follow me on Twitter or here in the Discord.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you again for coming on. We're gonna wrap things up here now. Thank you everyone who stopped by tonight. Again, make sure you check out Midnya on her social media, Twitch and Twitter. All right.
All
Good
right.
night.
Bye bye.
Yay, stream